following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
14:20 in the morning, 14 minutes and 20 seconds where the sports talk to get you through your daily commute. Hot takes, recaps, best bets, and a little humor to get your day going in the right direction. Sit back, grab your coffee, and let's get into it. All right, 14:20 in the morning, which is April the 12th, 2023. This show is every morning here at 14:20 in the morning. It's brought to you by Caldera Lab and calderalab.com. Use promo code 1420LAB for 20% off their men's skincare products and keep that youthful exuberance in your mug as we get a little bit older or things start to change a little bit. So this is a product I can really get behind. I've had it for 3 weeks now and can really actually see the difference that it's making already. So go to calderalab.com and give your mug that extra care that it needs on a daily basis. Anyways, the National Hockey League schedule is coming down to the final days. The season ends on Friday with 2 hockey games left. There's still one playoff spot up for grabs. It's been crazy. Gary Bettman and the guys at the world headquarters in New York City, they've got what they wanted with the parity in the league and everything else that they have, the competitive balance that they've always wanted. There's a lot of teams that were in it right till last night. There was a team eliminated right till it could be tomorrow that another team gets eliminated. There's only one series that's set up, and that's for who the opponents are going to be, and that's been set up since I think January, really, with the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Toronto Maple Leafs, who played a pretty good hockey game last night down in Tampa. That the Leafs ended up winning that game without Marner and without Matthews playing. But anyways, that doesn't matter a whole bunch. But some great hockey games last night and everything else. But the competitive balance is there, and it keeps the parity in the league. It keeps people interested right to the bitter end. The buildings are full. Everybody's talking about who's going to play who, and it keeps hockey relevant right now, which it should be 100%. With baseball starting, people getting into different things going on in their lives and getting out of their winter hibernation. Maybe not being around the television watching hockey. It keeps people watching the game a lot more. It keeps the playoff races going. It's crazy how there's only the one playoff match set up so far. Everybody's kind of where they're going to be. It could be a win here or a loss there that could change just where guys play and where their standings are. But there's every team's last game is kind of it's going to matter a whole bunch. Even the teams that aren't making the playoffs, their games are becoming more and more important. You look at what Chicago did last night with the Pittsburgh Penguins. We'll talk about that in a second too, but it's crazy how the games that you think that wouldn't have any bearing on a season would come down to this. And it goes down to what I've said before, and I'll say it again, that every game matters. And no matter what you say about a game in October or a game in November, how you don't think it's going to matter in your National Hockey League season or in your baseball season, games in April. The Yankees won big yesterday. I was going to get my Yankee plug in there. But the people who say that these games don't matter early, they don't know what's going on in the world of sports. They don't have any idea how a season actually works, because these seasons can be long, they can be tenuous, they can be a bit drawn out. You kind of get bored sometimes. You get those February games, you're like, oh man, I don't want to watch another game, because sometimes the hockey season does seem to drag a little bit, and you don't even watch. Like if you're kind of an outsider fan, you don't watch a whole bunch of games during the week. You tune in because you're supposed to, but there's a lot of games that don't have any relevance. You don't really care about a Columbus Minnesota Wild game. I don't think I've ever watched a Columbus Minnesota Wild game. In fact, I don't think I've watched a Minnesota Wild game in its entirety in my life. But just one of those franchises that don't tickle the heartstrings, I guess, is one of those things. But the National Hockey League, they got what they wanted when they got the collective bargaining agreements, and they got the guys, the competition committee, I guess it was called, to try to find a way to keep people interested, keep things going. I remember years ago when they had the problem with the clutching and grabbing and the neutral zone trap and the left wing lock, and they had to get rid of that. And then they got rid of all the different rules to get more scoring in the game, which they've done, more action in the game, which they've done. They shrunk the goaltender equipment to get more goals, and that's helped. I still think they could do a little bit more there. But I think the biggest thing with hockey is that just the guys are so skilled. I watched that the end of the the Colorado Edmonton game last night, and just the skill level that those guys have. Those two teams are playing at a different speed and a different level that I haven't seen in my 48 years watching hockey. Well, 45, I guess wasn't watching hockey right out of the womb, but it's one of those things like it's unbelievable. I think that has more to do with it than anything. Why the games are more entertaining and why the game is where it's at. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that it's just the guys are just faster, and the skill level is just so high. But the one thing I understand why hockey did it, to keep people relevant, and I understand that is one of those things that you want to have people watching the games, and every point matters, everything else. But I'm still not a fan at all of the 3-on-3. I'm still not a fan of, especially more so of the shootout. I can't stand the shootout. Actually, I hate it to every last sense of my being, that I don't think a skills competition should end a hockey game. I've talked about it on this show. I've talked about other people's shows that I've been on. I've talked about it with people in fucking sports bars. Swearing this early in the morning probably isn't good for my soul, but I've talked about that. I've hated shootouts ever since I can remember. Maybe it has something to do with losing a shootout on the last day of the regular season in the Alberta Junior Hockey League many moons ago. But one of those things, I've just never been a fan of the shootout. I think that's something that they got to look at, maybe get rid of that. I know why they do it. They want the games to end. They don't want to have a tie, and they have time constraints because of TV and everything else. And that's the only reason why they do it. And anybody who says anything differently as to why they have a shootout is that they're lying to themselves. They're lying to me. The only reason why they have the shootout in place is because they have a time constraint on television. That's the only reason, because there's a definite end to that, and it's ridiculous that you have guys who battle it out for that 1 point. What I would do, like if there was a situation, I've talked about it before, go to a 4-on-4, then go to a 3-on-3, and then end it. And if it ends that way, just leave it, because I don't think it should end that way. And if you're going to go to a shootout, you know what? Don't have that extra point. If you're so hell bent on having a winner of a hockey game, make sure that the teams want to end it in the overtime session, or more so in regulation time, and don't give that extra point for a shootout. You have to, if you lose an actual, I wouldn't say an actual hockey game, because it's still depleted part of the game with the 3-on-3. But if you lose that, then you get the loser point. If you lose in a shootout, you shouldn't get the extra point. You should get both points and call her good. Maybe to get the shootout out of here, because that's just one of those things that I don't think should be a part of the game. But it has led to a lot of this parity in the league, where the extra point, you get there, you get the points, and then you look at the standings. You need a calculator and an abacus and mathematicians and accountants to figure out. A week ago, like yesterday, I was trying to record something. I was trying to figure out how all the different combinations, because there was a lot going on just as of yesterday, and it kind of cleared up yesterday with Chicago beating Pittsburgh. It got one more team out of the mix, and then Winnipeg won last night, so then they're in, and the like. But it's crazy how the numbers you got to have in the ROW, and then this one, regulation win and regulation loss, and this tie and that and everything else. It gets a little bit confusing for a guy like me who's just used to be a wins and loss kind of guy, because I'm old enough to remember when there wasn't even overtime in the regular season, right? It was just a tie, and that was it. So that was easy to say 2 points was this, 1 point was that. See you later, bing bang boom. That's her. But now it's a lot different. I don't like it. But I understand why they're doing it. It keeps people interested. It keeps people invested in the season right to the bitter end. Like I said, there's one game left for most teams, and a lot of these teams they don't know where they're traveling on Monday or Tuesday or Sunday afternoon, whatever it may be, for the playoffs. There's the one matchup that's going to be a humzinger. Toronto's going to win that series. Mark it down here on the 12th day of April, 2023. The Toronto Maple Leafs are going to beat the Tampa Bay Lightning in that first round. It's going to be interesting. It's crazy how the Chicago Blackhawks, who've only won 2 games in their last 14, I think it is, how they become such an integral or a part of this playoff race, and because the 2 wins that they've had in the last 14 basically might have ended a couple of seasons. You look at what they did with Calgary last week. Calgary lost that game. Calgary's got a lot of problems that we talk about a lot in this part of the world, but that loss Calgary had to Chicago last week was a backbreaker for their season. Yes, it's only one game, but that's the one that kind of decided Calgary's fate for their season. And then last night with Chicago somehow beating the Pittsburgh Penguins 5-2, even, like, it was a kind of a little bit of a beatdown, 5-2, and you're out. And so that kind of puts Pittsburgh behind the 8 ball. You have one game against it. They should win against Columbus, but they're going to need some help. They're going to Montreal to give them a hand and beat the Islanders on Wednesday night, I think it is. I don't think that's going to happen. So you got to think that the 17-year run of Sidney Crosby and the Penguins being in the playoffs is over, and you wonder if that's going to be the end of an era in Pittsburgh and what kind of a change they're going to have and how they're going to go moving forward, or if Crosby's going to stick around or Malkin's around or Letang and the like. Everybody's got to find some goaltending, and that's one of those things. But you wonder how a team like Chicago, who's their franchise doesn't even want wins right now because they want to get in that chase for Connor Bedard with Columbus, who's they're right there now. I think Chicago's 2 points up with their win last night. But you wonder how a team like Chicago has been irrelevant all year long ends up being the team to knock out to basically should have been playoff teams for sure. It's funny how hockey can turn that way and everything else. It's crazy how that happened. Yeah, Florida got into the playoff race last night. You got to think that the things are changing a lot in the National Hockey League, the way it's all going to turn out. It's going to be interesting to see how it all turns out on when it's all said and done. I guess we'll know by Saturday morning, Friday night, I guess, who's playing who and how it's all going to go together. We have a show plan we're going to be doing. I think it's not even going to get out onto the airwaves or the podcast world. We're thinking about doing a Sunday night after hours kind of a deal, only on YouTube about 8 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. We're going to be recording that one. It'll just be up on YouTube Live. Half-hour show to wrap up the week and see the playoff look ahead, see what went wrong, what went right with the National Hockey League season. We're going to do it every Sunday night on YouTube, but we'll talk about that maybe. We'll talk about that on probably Saturday morning. We'll give you the details of how that's all going to pan out. So yeah, interesting to see how the NHL is going to play this out, see what they're going to do when it all starts and how it's going to all pan out. But the Stanley Cup champions, I think, are going to come out of the Western Conference. I shouldn't say that because the Bruins are still the Bruins, and they have a just as good a shot as anybody. But anyways, there's my talk for the day here on 1420 in the morning, brought to you by CalderALab.com. Anyways, on this day in 1980, Canadian athlete Terry Fox began his Marathon of Hope in St. John's, Newfoundland, to raise money for cancer research. Fox, who lost his right leg to cancer at the age of 19, dipped his prosthetic leg in the Atlantic Ocean and began his journey across Canada and ran until he couldn't run anymore. And his journey ended 143 days and 5,373 kilometers later, but was forced to end it when cancer spread to his lungs. $1.7 million raised by the time he ended it. But now, since it's been going, the Marathon of Hope and the Terry Fox Run, which has been going since he couldn't do it anymore, has raised over $850 million for research to the annual Terry Fox Run for cancer research. I remember doing that as a kid. I remember when I was at Notre Dame, a little bit older, the Fox Hound Run. It's still a thing. It goes right across Canada. And you remember those Terry Fox. I'm old enough to remember it, obviously 1980, but it was, man, that guy had one of Canada's greatest athletes, and kind of shows that you can do anything you put your mind to it, even with one leg. And it's one of those, one of the greatest Canadians of all time, one of the greatest people of all time, that he tried to make a change all those years later. And you can say what you want about cancer research and where some money goes, but Terry Fox, he gave it his all back in the day. There's no doubt about that. And happy birthday to Adam Graves, born on this day 55 years ago in Toronto, Ontario. Graves was drafted 22nd overall by the Detroit Red Wings. Graves, 2 Stanley Cups, one in Edmonton, one with the Rangers, 16 years in the National Hockey League. Stops from Detroit, Edmonton, San Jose, and the Rangers, obviously. 329 goals, 287 assists for 616 points, 1,224 penalty minutes, and like I said, 2-time Stanley Cup winner. Great player. I like Graves a lot. He's a rough and tumble kind of a player. He was a no-nonsense kind of a guy. Like the way he played. There's no getting around now. You can play on my team any day. Anyways, we're doing the playback, the Yankee telecast today. Make sure you guys tune into that. Watch that for a couple of innings. There's a method to the madness. But watch the Yankees game with me today. They're playing the game 3 of the series against Cleveland. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's very important. That's the way these podcasts are kind of growing nowadays. So subscribe to our YouTube channel. Watch the shorts and everything else. It puts us up there, but most importantly, listen to the 1420 podcast. Support our sponsors in the whole bit, because it helps us keep putting these shows out there for you guys, and we like doing it. What do we got? We got one more 1420 in the morning tomorrow, and then Dave and I are doing the 1420 Sports Bar podcast tomorrow night, and then the Yankee preview on Friday morning, and that'll be a special show for some different reasons as well. But anyways, thank you guys very much for listening to the show this morning. Those of you who watched on YouTube and Facebook, thank you very much. And those who are going to watch it on YouTube later on, thank you very much. Make sure you guys like it and share it and everything else. It's one of those things. Anyways, thank you very much for being for watching the show. Thank you very much for listening, and make sure you guys have a great day And remember, it doesn't matter where you are. It's who you're with.
You just listened to the 1420 Sports Bar Podcast. 4 beer with the sports talk and a whole lot more. We are part of the Belly Up Media Network. Let's get into it.